The Extrospective podcast is sponsored by Runner, which is the first of its kind, #1 rated, fully automated running coaching service. Whether you're training for your first marathon, a faster 10k time, or simply couch to 5k, you'll be guided by an expert team including Olympic marathon runner Steph Davis. Download Runner, spelt RUNNA, today from the App Store and take your running to the next level. With code ZAK, you'll be able to get your first 2 weeks free and see what all the hype is about. That's ZAK, Z-A-K, for your first 2 weeks free. Hey guys, it's Zach Villeneuve-Snell here, and how is everyone doing today? Welcome back to another episode of the Extrospective podcast. Today I'm joined by Izzy Sharp, who is an aspiring professional cyclist who already has multiple national and European titles to her name, both on the road and track. In this episode, we delve into the grassroots of cycling, competing and beating the boys at youth track leagues, the winter burnout, eating disorders in cycling, standing on the top step of the podium with national anthem playing, and much, much more. I came across Izzy many years ago through mutual friends and local cycling clubs, and have enjoyed watching her progress through the ranks, all the way to competing at World Championships at the end of 2022 in Australia. I thought it'd be super interesting to hear her perspective, of course, on her own development and learnings, as well as the direction of women's cycling and British cycling at large. So without further ado, Izzy Sharp.
At the time, nationals were the biggest thing of the year. Now they're a good bit of training and a bit of fun. There's many teams that was like, now we're not starting a women's team, now we're heavily involved in women's cycling. I went around the other side of the track, if someone I knew gave me a flag, and it was just doing that stuff that you see on TV and you think that'd be cool to do one day. Until I was literally landing in Aussie, in Israel, in Portugal, I just still didn't believe that I was going. I just couldn't speak to anyone. I had a constant fear of, you've just finished racing, someone's in your face with a camera. You have to be able to speak on the spot and speak to new people. I focus on what I'm good at rather than trying to win everything that comes my way, which isn't humanly possible. I had a lot of pressure. If I came like second, it was, oh, what went wrong? Nothing wrong with a bit of lycra.
Yeah. Right. How's it going, Izzy? Thanks for coming onto the podcast.
Yeah, good, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing so well. So well.
So,
Couldn't be doing better. I'm really excited for this episode because your journey is quite a unique one, not one that I know much about. I feel like I'm on the outside of the cycling scene, and I kind of watch from a bird's eye view. Obviously, I follow on Instagram the successes that you've gone on to enjoy, pursuing a career as a professional in the women's scene, and I think it's incredible. And I really wanted to understand more about that in this episode. And so hopefully at the end, the listeners will have an idea of what it takes to go from grassroots and building up and the challenges and where you've got to now. So yeah, really looking forward to it. To understand who you are, first of all, before we talk about more recent years, I want to understand what you were like before you found cycling. So like as a kid, if you can like think back to your kind of personality at school, what were you like?
the quiet kid. And it's really weird because now I'm such an outspoken person and quite a confident person. I'll speak to anyone, and it's really weird. Like when I was a lot younger, I just couldn't speak to anyone. Like I had a constant fear of like just speaking to people, like teachers, everything, and it's really weird because I'm kind of polar opposites of what I am now. But I was always like quite a reassurance person as well, and that kind of carried through into sport. Like I kind of always need feedback throughout like training, races, and that sort of thing, because it's like reassurance of, yeah, I did mess up there, or I am doing quite well there. And I think there's always traits that lie, but cycling has definitely helped me come out my shell a bit more from when I was younger. I was, very different to how I am now.
So you're like kind of unsure, kind of quiet.
Yeah.
Were you a hard worker at school? Were you good at school? More
I was quite
sporty?
luckily, yeah. I was luckily naturally quite smart in terms of didn't really need to revise to pass, but I wasn't someone who enjoyed school. I don't think the environment can suit everyone, but I was the kid that just sort of got distinction in sport, and then the rest was sort of a pass, and it should just scraping by. But yeah, there was always a clear definite of what I was interested in going through the years.
That's really interesting. That's like a common theme throughout like most of these episodes is people saying that the school environment wasn't suited to them. I think that maybe that says we need to change something about the way we do school, right? To make it a bit more flexible, a bit more fluid. Um,
Yeah.
So you
I just
you
don't think you can put. I don't think you can put that many people in a building and expect it to work. Like, and especially the sport I'm in, it's not really a playground sport, is it? So it was always like can't wait to go home to do cycling because you just don't get the opportunity at school. Or it's not really. It's quite a undeveloped sport in terms of like popularity. Like even in like school when you get taught things, it's always football or them sort of sports. So I think yeah, it was always waiting to go home to get back on the bike.
I suppose the next question, quite a natural question that follows, is like how did you get into cycling? Were your parents cycling, or you found about it through friends? How did that come about?
No, so I always tried a lot of different sports because I always wanted to do something. I can't just sit and do nothing. I get so bored so quick. I did swimming originally for a couple years, but everyone just gets uninterested when you're younger, don't you? Like it's hard to stay committed to one thing. And then triathlon, which is quite common, I think, for people to get into cycling. It's always like triathlon and then cross, and that was my development. So I hated the running. Couldn't think of anything worse than the running part. And I liked the swimming, but cycling was definitely like my strongest point. And so I started doing cross in the winter. And the same coach who did cross did track sessions, so it kind of flowed into that side of things. And my granddad was a cyclist. He got into it quite late to be like a pro, but he did like win like the race across America and stuff. And so the road aspect then got thrown in from him because he did time trialing and road, and it kind of all fell into place once it started. In a year, I was sort of doing 4 disciplines and felt thrown into it quite quick, really.
So at what age was it that you kind of did swimming and then found cycling?
So, oh, wow, swimming was probably about 9 till about 11. And then triathlon was only like a year or so. Like it wasn't very long. And then I
Yeah.
went to cycling. So, probably around the age of 11, 12 is when I transferred to just cycling on its own.
I feel like maybe I don't speak for all of us, but we kind of learn swimming as kids, and then it gets to that crossover stage between like junior and senior school, like when you go into year 7, get to 11, and it's hard to stay committed to those things. And obviously, if you're constantly being exposed to new sports, which are you're far more interested in and don't always require like super early wake ups, and I've heard plenty
Yeah.
of stories from swimmers about that sort of stuff. Did you get in cycling because there was something about it you enjoyed more, or was it just because that you were better at it?
I think swimming and cycling was very neck and neck, but I think the problem with swimming was I already did that on its own and it wasn't working. Like I didn't really enjoy it on its own, so the three kind of was my enjoyment. And so I did it and enjoyed it in a triathlon aspect, but I couldn't go back to doing it singularly again. And so that's when I thought, oh, I'll try out cycling more seriously. And that's sort of when I started then looking into routes of local, clubs and stuff to just get me going. I think it was winter time, so cross was the main exposure that I had, and it was so cheap to just pick up a bike then that was just something easy to do cyclocross on. So that was the easy route, really.
Cyclocross is something that fascinates me. For listeners who don't really follow cycling or know much about it, cyclocross is essentially like I mean, you could probably describe it better than I could, but it's winter time in the mud, sort of riding a road bike, but with like knobbly tires. You got to like get off and run and jump over obstacles, and it's just
Yeah,
an absolute like mud bath. But I suppose it's
about
really
5 hours
testing.
of cleaning after. Yeah, about
Yeah.
5 hours of cleaning a bike. It's
In fact,
just not
even,
worth
it gets so bad that you often have to bring two bikes, right? Like, because one bike just gets
it.
clogged with mud, and you have to like swap over, and it's just
Yeah,
absolutely
half
nuts.
the time you'll see the cyclist run into the pits. I think you got to be a better runner than a cyclist to be a cross
I
rider.
suppose that's where maybe the triathlon came in handy then. The tiny bit of running that you were doing,
Yeah,
you may as well call it swimming as well with the amount of mud and stuff. But
yeah.
why do you think you took to that? Because again, I appreciate that those sorts of conditions, that sort of challenge, isn't for everyone, and some
Yeah,
people just that's like their worst nightmare, right? Doing something like that.
yeah.
So what do
Well,
you
I
think it?
wouldn't go back now.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So you didn't do cross for that long.
No, so I did it. So I did the winter I joined. Started doing cow shot track actually. That was my first track I've ridden on. So it was kind of throwing me in the deep end because it's like half the size of an original size one. But I sort of did cross, did a bit of track, got into the road through the summer months, used one of my granddad's old bikes, and then it got to winter and I did another season. And then after that, I did one race like last year when we came out of COVID. And it was, I think I came like pan last, but it was fun, but I'd never do it again, seriously.
So there's very much a quick transition onto like road and track.
Yeah.
Um, what was it about track that then finally and road, I suppose, but finally like caught your attention? And because obviously swimming, you did it for a bit, then you stopped. Cyclocross, you kind of did
Mhm.
it for a bit, stopped. Triathlon, same kind of story. But you've kept cycling all through this time and have great success. So what do you think it is about cycling in particular that kind of lit a fire inside you for that?
I think initially it was one, the buzz. I don't know what buzz it was, but like on track, it was that feel of speed. When you're younger, you're not going that quick, are you? You feel like you are at the time, and you really not when you look back on it. But it was that feel of speed, and like I got into the Bournemouth sessions during the summer months, and that was quite nice because it creates that like friendly environment for you to like go to, and it wasn't like training on your own or doing just cyclocross races, as I say, in the winter. It was that like just community about it, and also just enjoyment. Like the road and the track just gives me that different feel and buzz, and like I just started riding competitively, and it just made me want to keep going and do more with it and see how far I could go. So yeah, I think it was just that community initially because I hadn't really felt that before, and then it just grew from there really.
Do you feel like you are a competitive person?
Oh yeah, even the Christmas games gets a little bit stressful when we're losing.
Really? Okay. And another theme of successful people I've spoken to. I think it's that I can for certain kind of write that off now. That's a definitive thing. Any successful person, they've got to be competitive because you're
Yeah.
competing literally on the start line against all these other girls. And also, guys, I was looking at your British cycling from when you first started racing at Calshot, and you were beating the boys
Oh yeah.
on the track in 2017. And these aren't some random boys; like these are guys who have gone on to reach the same relative level in sport as you have, like doing like European racing and stuff, which is nuts. That you like as an under 14, you're there, like you know what? Let's have it.
Yeah, yeah. Because the first summer months as well, like those training, they were all like fully grown men. That like there was, lads that are a couple years older than me and their dads, and I think I just got thrown into the deep end. But then that developed me so quick, and like you say, I just sort of was thrown into the deep end, and it was just even like I did Assen at quite a young age. It might have been first year under 14, and that at that point it was still mixed. It was like the year below us of boys and us were mixed together. So yeah, initially I did kind of all racing with the with the lads. So.
That's interesting to also hear that it was mixed as well. I guess like that's.
Mm.
Do you think that's just because there just wasn't enough? There just wasn't enough like young girls into the sport.
Yeah, I don't know really. Like at the time, I feel like you go along with things and just like yeah, whatever, it's fine. But that was the last year. So if you were a first year under 14 female and a second year under 12 boy, I think that's what it was. Then you mixed, but any age above that, it was separate. I'm not too sure whether it was to save time or what the real reason of it was. But I suppose it also creates a bigger field. But even though they're a year below, like boys are always, scientifically proven stronger. So it was an intense race for us, but it was a good one. To be fair, I did enjoy it.
I suppose maybe you wouldn't have gone on to the success that you did without that because, like it's like you say, it forced you to develop. It forced you to like because if you're always competing against people that are slightly better than you, that's always the thing they say with cycling or any sport, right? You always got to surround yourself with people who are better than you because you're going to elevate to wherever they're at. So
Yeah, yeah.
that's
Training and racing, I think that applies. Like in both aspects, you've got to like go like push yourself with people that are better or stronger, and you develop quicker. So I think that's why my development happened so quick, and why I fell into sport so nicely is because I was just thrown into that deep end, so it happened quite quick.
was there ever like a feeling of I think we throw around the word imposter syndrome a bit too much these days, but did you ever feel like, oh, this sport is just dominated by like all these men and like middle-aged mammals, the whole stereotype, and you're obviously like a young girl, and most of the people there are guys. Did you ever feel like you were a bit of like out of place, or did that like motivate you to like prove them that you could do it as well?
Yeah, I felt like it was a motivation thing at the time because obviously if we mix with the lads now, we get thrown out the back. That's no doubt because they develop. But at the time, like I think I finished like second overall still. I mean, the guy was a unit who won, but I think the first day was threatening because it's the unexpected of what's to come and how strong they really are, and it was all sort of a bit of like a new thing and angry dads yelling around at 12-year-old kids. It's just the classic. But I think at first, but then eventually you realise that's just the sport, and you get older and you become a bit immune to it. You don't really realise it happens. But yeah, I think I do get what you're saying, and I feel like the sport's definitely over the last couple of years developed massively for women's side. So it's definitely going in the right direction, 100%.
I suppose with your help as well as being like a role model for like younger girls who are coming through the sport now, they need people like yourself who are going and achieving to go, oh, actually, I could do that.
Yeah.
Did you have anyone when you were younger that like was a proper inspiration? Could be like family or even like major pros at the time. Was there anyone that you like looked to be like, oh, they're being a pro, I can do it as well?
Yeah, definitely. Like, I think initially, like my granddad, he's sort of stopped a bit now, but he kind of helped get into it, obviously. And so then you kind of like look to that person. Like, I always kind of got like, before a race, he was kind of my go to person to speak to and stuff. It's like a reassurance thing, as I say, when I started. And I feel like it's so commonly said, and it always is. But Katie Archibald was definitely my top person to look at. Like, when I was younger, like, she was the first name I knew in sport. And so I feel like that instantly draws you to them because it's the one name you're like, wow, that's pretty cool what they're doing. It's, you want to get to that level, and that was kind of what then pushed me. But I feel like it's so common, Laura Kenny and Kate Archibald, there's always the names, or on the road, Voss, but yeah, I'd say Katie because she was the first person I was introduced to, like, as a name. So
As you're sort of developing then through being mixed in with the lads and then going out into Assen, racing in Belgium, right? Wait, is Assen in Belgium? Was it is it Netherlands?
no, yeah, it was Assen in Belgium. I did, yeah.
Right, okay. What was it like your first time going abroad for this sport? Because I suppose if you'd chosen one of those other sports you mentioned earlier, like football, it'd be quite rare that you'd be like going abroad and competing. So
Yeah.
I guess there's two aspects. Like, what was it like for you, and then what were your friends thinking when like suddenly you're just traveling away to race your bike?
Yeah, no, it was since I was like young, like really young, like before I was 10. My dream has always been to travel, so it was always like just such a big opportunity to be able to do that within my sport and hopefully my future career. Um, so I was quite like taken back at the time because I was so young to know that you could even do that, and that was a thing that you race abroad and not just like against people in the nation. But it was almost quite nice as well because you didn't know any names there. No one really knew each other. And so you go, and there was zero pressure whatsoever. It was just go race, see what happens. And it allows you to also try something new. Like, anyone in my junior age category now knows what I'm good at, what tactics I'm going to play. Like, but you go to a European scene or a world scene and you realise actually you can play any card you want because they don't actually know what you're good at. And so that was quite nice. I think, like, just having no pressure and just doing what feels right at the time. But it was different. Like, racing European and racing in the UK is just non-comparable. I think, especially like as you get older, it gets a bit more aggressive, doesn't it? But even back then, like the bigger fields, the way that it was ridden, the professionalism of it in terms of we were so young but getting so old. Um, it wasn't like a small 12 people field. It was quite a big field for what we were doing. So it was quite cool. And I think when you do that sort of things, it gives you the insight of that's what it's like. Do you know what I mean? And when you're older, then you're like, that's what I want to aspire to do. And it was just an extra bit of motivation to be like, yeah, this is what I want to do for sure. Like, it was cool. Do you know what I mean? And my friends thought, what the hell? Even now, it's like what we do is just crazy. So
Yeah. Do you think there was a change in you from when you were just like first finding it to then going and competing in these like bigger level races? Like, did you just grow in confidence, or were there like doubts that creeped in? Or I want to understand like what that journey was like for you, like mentally.
yeah. I don't know. Like, it's really weird. I feel like you move with the times a little bit. Like, so when we were going through the COVID time, I was always thinking like, just push through to worlds because you need motivation. And I was like, go big. Do you know what I mean? Like, you might as well, and it only makes you dig deeper. So I did feel like you grow with the time because then you always doubt yourself, like, nah, I'm not going to go, but I'll use it as motivation just in case. Do you know what I mean? And you do end up doing those things, and again, it's another moment of like, wow, like, this is what I want to do, and it then progresses you on and develops you mentally. And the more you do, the stronger you get. Like, I'm a different person to now than even a year ago. Like, I've learned so much and I've developed so much. Not just I put out X amount, what's more, it's also technically I'm better, mentally I'm better. You just get so much stronger. And I think that just happens even for youth. Like, at the time, nationals were the biggest thing of the year. Now they're a good bit of training and a bit of fun. And so you just move with it. Like, and it's really weird to say that because all I ever knew was nationals, train for nationals and get a jersey. And now it's like use that to train and try new things, and then we go to the big events. And I think, like I say, it is like a move with the times time thing. It's not like a progressive. Um, but yeah, in terms of like mental, like it was just you gradually get stronger with the sport, and you have your ups and downs. Like I had one year, it was my year coming out of second year under 14, and it was the year that was very successful for me. Like I got many wins in national series and like won the national series, and there was many things I did, and that year was the year that all winter I just didn't want to ride anymore. It was really weird, and it's weird. You have these highs and you have these lows, and it's sometimes when you have the highs, the lows like happen straight after. I find, and it's so it's really odd. Like it was my best season that I did, and it was one winter that was the only winter I've had where I was like I can't do it, and I don't know what it was at the time, but it's just weird how it works because I'm so grateful I pushed through because you realise it was worth it after. Do you know what I mean? And I did speak to a pro during that winter who spoke to me and said every 2 to 3 years she has doubts about the sport, and I think it kind of brings that reassurance that it's normal. You're not always going to feel 100% great, ready to go, ready to train. And I think that's when you adapt as well, and that changed my mindset on the sport. And you do learn that it will get hard, but it will get better as well. And so, like I said, I think you just learn things as you go, and people help you as you go as well.
Absolutely. I suppose that really does speak to the importance of having role models, not only there to like aspire towards, but also for that reassurance of like, hey, look, I've been there as well. I've had those times. I've had those moments of like burnout or wanting to quit or whatever. You said you didn't know like at the time why you didn't want to ride. Is there anything now when you like look back and you can kind of go, oh, maybe it's because I was overdoing it or putting too much pressure on myself, or is that still something that you haven't really thought about?
I have no idea, to be honest. Like, it might have been a pressure thing as it got like towards the end of the year, and now I see it as burnt out. But at the time, I didn't know that you can't peak for 20 races in the year because you're just not knowledged. So I think as the season went on, there was like the national omnium at the end of it, which was a big goal for me, and I'd done well the whole year, and you know, not in a cocky way, in a factual way, I did win a lot of the races, so and all the track races I did win, and so I was going into it quite confident. And Omnium, the first race was the IP, and I went into that. And it was my worst one I ever did for like 3 years. It's the slowest time I did because I overthought it and I put too much pressure on. And it was one of the last races, and I remember I came out of it and I said to Mum, I was like, I need to get a coach, and I didn't have one at the time. I was like, I need a coach, and that's where I just realised I had that bite in me because I had that down that brought such a big up because I wanted to push more and I wanted to get more. And the following year was COVID, but then after that I was like, I'm getting that national jersey, and you just have that bit of grit in you, and I think that's where the competitive kind of helps because those lows you use to sort of like give you a bit of fight instead of letting it like crumble a bit. So yeah, it could have been that. I think that was a big knock, and I had a lot of pressure. If I came like second, it was what went wrong? Nothing. They just simply were stronger in that race, And I think I had that reputation of I was meant to win, and I wasn't. And so that I think that could have played a factor in it, and I had a lot of pressure going into the next year, and that's when then COVID hit. So it probably was a build up of many things.
I suppose the step to get a coach is inevitable if you want to make it to the top level. But did you notice a big difference in like your performances pre and post coaching, or was it just that I mean,
Yeah.
I guess obviously you're going to say yes, but like, is it because it just like gave you the accountability, or was it like the coaching itself that you think before you were just sort of just riding and just racing to get fit? Like, what was your training regime like?
So I was training regularly still, but it was very like what we thought was right and going off what my granddad knew. And he was knowledgeable, but knowledgeable for what he was good at, and that was long time trial, long distances. And at that young age, that's not what we're meant to do. Our races were like 45 minutes, an hour, and we weren't there to race for hours on end. So
Race across
I think,
America.
yeah, not quite the same. And so I think getting that structure built in, and I also went with Magnus Backstead, who is obviously very knowledgeable. And COVID did kind of help me. Like I just got the hours in, and obviously you didn't have school, and I could just do hours on end and put big shifts in, and that was kind of what I was doing. That's where it sort of became more of a job in terms of I rode daily, and that was kind of it. That's what I did because I didn't have that school or any other structure. And then I started to think, and I was like, once I'm done with school and college, that's what my daily life could be: is just go out, ride your bike, and come home. And that sounds a lot easier than what it is, but yeah, I think it did help me in many ways getting a coach, and having that person that was looking over it and setting you something helped.
So you say it was Magnus Backstead that was the coach.
Yeah.
Um, that was one thing I wanted to pick up on, because obviously I was doing some research before, and I saw that
Yeah.
you were paired up with Zoe Backstead for the sixth day. Was it? Yeah,
Yeah.
London sixth day in 2019. So for people again who don't know, Magnus Backstead and his daughters are quite well known in like the British scene because he won things like Paris-Roubaix, professional cyclist, and obviously his daughter's also quite successful. So like, what was it like to then begin working with them, knowing the kind of pedigree that they had, and the fact that obviously it must be quite inspiring working with them, going, I can do this too. I'm getting paired up with her,
Um,
therefore I'm on a similar level. That must be quite a nice feeling.
yeah, I was. What was it? Second under. Yeah, it must have been second under 14. I'm guessing I was, and obviously she was then first year under 16. It was just a matter of like fun in a way, though. It was quite cool, like because we just become friends that year and started speaking a bit, and obviously her dad was then coaching me. And that was purely because we just knew he was knowledgeable and got so many recommendations, and we were like, he's got to be the one we go to. But the thing was for me at the time is I didn't really understand them as a family and how big they were and the things they'd accomplished at the time. Like big races weren't big races to me. I didn't like really have that concept yet. Like I hadn't learned like names and races, and I was just riding my bike to have fun. So I think that was like one of the main things is when I went and did it, it was just fun with a mate in a way at the time. Do you know what I mean? So it was a really cool experience. That was another like moment when I was younger of like wow, like we had like the full crowds, and we were really lucky, me and Zoe, after we hovered round at like the bottom of the stairs waiting for pros to go down to the toilet to get signatures. And in the end, a security guard took us up, and we were in the middle, and that was quite a cool moment because just with them all and seeing what it was like and what they're doing and being there like before acts, if you like, and yeah, it was just really cool with the lights, and that's why I like the new track lead that's come out because I remember how that felt and how cool like 6 day was, and I think that's like an even cooler version of it with all they're doing at the minute. So seeing the new things come out like that makes it quite exciting for like what our sport could be in the future.
Absolutely. That's something I want to touch on a little bit later on because it's quite a
Mm.
hot topic at the moment with the way the way the sport's going in the UK. I don't know if it's a trend across other places, but it's a challenging time for domestic scene, both men and women's, and aspiring professionals in the UK. Everyone's just fleeing to go abroad. So obviously,
Yeah,
I want to touch on that and get your thoughts on it. But you mentioned there, obviously, well, you mentioned a couple of times coming into COVID and the fact that that gave you the opportunity to ramp it up. What was it like riding on like empty roads and then having nothing else to do? Like, did you struggle with the motivation of like, when's this going to end? What's the point in riding my bike? Because as a competitive person, I suppose like you want to just get like into racing. And so now
yeah,
it's a lot of miles and a lot of miles on your own as well because you
yeah.
couldn't ride with other people. So what was that like?
Weird. I think you're so used to like going out on your bike, getting a bit of road rage, and there was nothing. A penny drop the whole ride in there. That was lovely in terms of that. Like, and that was the year as well. We had like the hottest summer or whatever, so it was lovely. Like every day we were riding. Me and my dad were riding out, or just me on my own, as you say. He had work still, and I was quite lucky really with where I lived. It's an all right area enough to sort of get out and do the hours. It was, some people were quite stuck because their area is quite a technical place that's quite hard to get out of. But yeah, I was quite lucky, and I did enjoy it a lot. Because COVID sort of hit in March, and that summer was fine. Like, I loved it every day, and then it sort of hit winter, and that was the point where I was like, this needs to end. Like we're doing so much winter training, we're doing these hard like sessions, the hours, and it was that annoying point where we were getting out of it, but we weren't. We were still so stuck. And as you say, it was that moment of like, when am I actually going to race? I had these goals in my head that was pushing me, and I was like, I can't keep holding on to these if we're not even getting closer. Um, and Youth Olympics was a big thing I wanted to do as well, and then got cancelled because of COVID like a couple months before, and it was just a constant thing of like, we're not getting anywhere. Like when are we going to get back to this racing? And as you say, I think the summer was so easy, but the winter got harder because riding is harder. We know, everyone knows it. So it sort of sunk in a bit more like, oh god, we might be doing this for quite a while.
Yeah. It's exactly the same because obviously we're both from roughly the same place, and New
Yeah.
Forest was just completely empty. And I remember, even though I was still working, I was able to head out at 4 p.m. most days and do 2-3 hours, weekends, big rides, and yeah, it was unreal. And obviously there were limited racing opportunities, but one thing you didn't touch on there, but you did national TT. So I guess of
Mm.
what you could do, you went and smashed it, and you won it. So um,
Which one was that? Was that the?
was it
God,
CTT maybe?
yeah. That was like the main thing I did around that time was just the classic national CTT and British cycling TTs. So it
Yeah,
gets a
oh,
bit
I
confusing,
love that
but
though. It's I go, oh yeah, you're a national time trial. Like, oh, which one? Like, because you've just
so
won so many
that sounds
things. It's just
awful.
like, yeah. That's good though. I mean, it clearly proves that you've gone on to like bigger and better things, I suppose. Um,
Yeah, I remember though it was so weird even that like they couldn't hold you up at the start. You had to just push off and clip in because they couldn't come near you with COVID,
no,
and it was really weird. Like, all right, this is different.
yeah, that's a nightmare. It's like struggling to clip in, and you lose like 3 seconds in the beginning of the race.
Yeah,
Unreal. But then obviously you mentioned it was a bit difficult, kind of trying to keep in the hours that winter was a bit challenging. You had like the January lockdown and stuff in the UK. And then coming out the other side of that, what was that season like? Given I suppose you're probably doing more miles, right? So building a bit more of a base, and
yeah.
as well as the intervals that Magnus would have been setting. What was the
Mhm.
2021 season like compared to before?
Yeah, it was a lot better. So I transitioned coaches to Chris Booth because I got on the apprentice program with BC, and so that was obviously like a change of dynamic because Magnus is very much hours base work, time trial work, and that's mainly because we had no racing, so you might as well do that instead of intervals. And then when I got to Chris, it was a lot more intervals, shorter rides because we were hitting into the season instead of. It was quite a shock to the system. We did like 2 years of base work, and then suddenly it was interval. Um, but yeah, that was a big one. I think all the not regret as such, but the things that just didn't go to plan when I was under 14 and that big letdown at the because that was the big letdown. Do you know what I mean? It was such a big thing, national omnium, and that is all you have to go to because you don't have worlds and Euros. It seems too far away to even dream of going to them sort of things. And so yeah, I went into the year determined to sort of get a national jersey. I still hadn't won one by that point. Because I won the national series, but that wasn't a jersey one. And then the national jersey was mountainous. And for what we were doing, it was mountainous at the time. And then, like I say, track didn't go to plan. So it was a strive to get jerseys and to do well. And I did. And it was also nice because I wasn't winning as much. So it didn't feel as much pressure because I didn't have people, still did, but not as much of people being like, oh, what went wrong? What went wrong? Like, why did you not do well? And it's like, people are just stronger. People are better at hills than I am. People are more developed in certain aspects that I wasn't. And there just wasn't that pressure, and it's quite nice to just enjoy it a bit more, get back into racing. Yeah, it's like for a few wins, I wanted to get that relief of I've done it as a national jersey, and my youth, I wanted to leave with a jersey. I didn't want to go into junior and not have one. And so yeah, I think I completed my goals that year of what I wanted to do. So it was a good one, and it sort of paid off all those hours that we did in those winter months over lockdown. So
Do you think a lot of that was also not only the fact that you'd done the training physically, but as you like touched on very briefly earlier, the fact that you were also like developing as a person, like you were more sure of yourself and you're more, I suppose as you get older, you realize, okay, this is more and more possible. You get more and more committed. What was the biggest difference you noticed in like yourself in terms of the race preparation and how you dealt with the lows and the highs in like the season after COVID compared to like before? Because obviously 2 year difference is not huge, but at this time of your life it is because you're
mm,
just a hugely different person every other week, you
yeah,
know?
yeah. I think it was really odd because I had more confidence in losing more than what I did in winning more. Like I say, when I had that year of winning quite a lot, it felt a lot of pressure to continue that. Whereas I started trusting that I was good at what I was good at, and there's still things now where like I'll have a hilly race and I'll do quite well. There was a year. It would have been my under 16. I came back from COVID when I had it, and I was still quite knocked, and I did quite well on the hilly stage. And it was like, all right, I can do it. I'm just not going to beat someone who's 20 kilos less than me up a mountain. That's just how it works. Do you know what I mean? Especially at this stage, and I started having more confidence in myself that I'm good at time trial. I'm good at attacking. I had a good sprint on me in that year, and those were what I was good at. So I focus on what I'm good at rather than trying to win everything that comes my way, which isn't humanly possible. So yeah, I think the enjoyment was a lot more there, and I dealt with the lows better because I knew that I could use it as determination. Before that was like breaking point and like, God, how do I deal with this? I've not done what I wanted to do that year as an under 14. Whereas going to under 16, it was like, it's fine, use it to fuel you, to train harder, to work harder, to get those goals. And it's just like changing my dynamic of how I like approach things. And instead of like crumbling, it was more using it as that grit to push you on further, I think. So yeah, it was quite a big development between those 2 years because you changed a lot, and it was weird to have like missing a year of racing and whatever. So yeah, you changed a lot, but it was definitely definitely a lot better, and a lot more stronger minded.
I suppose if you're a bit more mature, then you're able to have a more full picture of what like not doing well means. Like
Yeah.
you're not just like, oh, throw your hands up in the air in frustration. I mean, of course, in the moment, but I think obviously you learn to like appreciate and bounce back and have a bit more of a bigger picture, I guess.
Mm.
Knowing that can then fuel you and propel you for the next things that came up. I don't want to touch on it too much. I don't know if I don't know if it's a sensitive topic for yourself, but you mentioned there like the fact that some people were better at hills, some people were better at sprinting. And it's something that I see in cycling in general is that we focus way too much on like watts per kilo, and it's this whole thing of like getting super lean. When actually, like the trends we see now is that if you've got more power, you'll just do better across the board. Because
Mm.
like even my housemate from last year, Tom Portsmouth, he's a fantastic rider. He's got a great contract on I think Continental League team next year, but he's like 10, 15 kilos. He's not your average cyclist build. So
Mm.
was that ever something that you like struggled with, or if not yourself, did you see like girls around you like struggle with that? Because I appreciate it's obviously quite a sensitive thing. So
Hmm. Yeah, I think so. I think people can not even like all the time just go through phases where you like just start overthinking it a little bit, and like you say, I think some people it's always stronger. Like people struggle with it more and less. Like for me, like it's not really something that bothers me, especially now. Like I say, I've learned what I'm good at. Especially as you get older as well, and to this stage, you're starting to work as a team rather than individually. So when it comes to a race, you can, for me personally, I'll be like, right, I'll work for the hill climbers on the team and hope they get a result, and they do the same back to me on the flatter stages, and you start to realize that it's not an individual race all the time; it's a team effort. And so I think that also helps everyone because when it is those hilly races, you're not expected to be 20, however many kilos more than other people and still try and beat them at the hilltop finish. And some people can. I mean, look at the likes of Zoe Backstead. There's some that are, like, she's about me, like, 20 kilos lighter or whatever, and she still is phenomenal. Like, people can do it. It's just she is a, phenomenal athlete. And so I think it does take off the pressure a little bit when you can work as a team more than an individual. I think it definitely does help it a lot. Still do people see people struggle with it, and I think people can overthink it a little bit too much, and it's understandable. But and when you're in a sport like this, and sometimes you can get a bit carried away in the sport as well, and like forget, like you say, the bigger picture, and it all becomes quite. It's just a lot of pressure sometimes, isn't it? You could be, like we say, across the other side of the world in Australia, and so things become a lot bigger because you're like, God, I'm around the other side of the world from home, and then maybe things can play in, negative things come in a little bit more, but yeah, as a group, I think it's a lot easier.
that makes a lot of sense. I think if you can double down on what you're good at, then you don't need to focus on what other people are doing, right? And
Yeah,
what you're
I
good
think
at.
sometimes it's possible as well. I'd never be able to get down to 50 kilos. I wouldn't be able to physically. That's Everyone has their own body type, so I think sometimes it's a matter of accepting as well. There is nothing I can do to get myself to a hill climber. That won't happen. I can work on my weaknesses and develop my muscles to cope with it better. But I'm always naturally going to be a powerhouse that's built for flat, sprint, time trial, and tacking. Like, yeah, I think it is an acceptance thing a lot of the time.
And I suppose as well, this is something that people kind of completely overlook, but you never see you see track cyclists. They're like in the gym more than they are on the bike, and
Yeah,
they're just unbelievably good at putting out huge power, and it's something that I kind of marvel at. Like I watch like the women's pursuit on the Olympics, and I'm like, oh
yeah,
my goodness, they're going like 60 plus k an hour. Like it's unreal. It's so far
yeah,
beyond what I could do in like my what like even if I put years into training.
yeah. Like
And
the
like
straight line power they have is insane.
And I suppose that's like part of what you do as well, because you're also still arguably right now you've had more success at track than you have at road.
Mm,
Like in terms of like given the current top tens and wins that you've had, like you
yeah.
probably, but yeah, obviously you're still doing both. So that's something that I wanna understand. So 2022, sort of come through into this year, this season. Probably would you say it's been your most successful uh,
Oh, yeah, 100% by far.
season yet? So it's kind of everything has sort of like come together with all of the training, the different training plans, doing the base, and then changing coaches, getting into the BC Academy. Did you say it was
The Apprentice Academy, yeah.
Apprentice Academy? And then it's kind of like, okay, let's take it to another level. So, like, if you could sum up before we go like specific, how would you sum up that this year? How was it meant to you?
God, that sum up a year. I've done so much. It's like some of it feels like years ago now. Like the start stuff feels like so long ago. Literally just like speechless. Like I think like I say, I always had these long term goals of let's go to Worlds, let's do Euros, let's go big. And it always felt surreal until I was literally landing. In Aussie, in Israel, in Portugal. I just still didn't believe that I was going. But I think what made it even better is I had those big goals for so long that when they were accomplished, it was like, wow, that's pretty cool. And so yeah, I think in total speechless because you just don't expect it to happen, and it was just an amazing opportunity this year. And like the thing I did is things I'd never really thought I was going to do. It was always cool to do, but whether it did happen or not, you just never could tell. So
I'm almost speechless at how to reply. Then it's just like, yeah, you're completely true. You're completely correct. I mean, I can't imagine what it would be like having something. You kind of don't really know what it's going to be like exactly, but for years and years, you have this vision of kind of competing at that level, and you don't know what it takes until you get there, and then you get there, and you kind of flash back to like the low moments of that difficult winter and different challenges with lockdowns and things, and it's like, wow, like
yeah,
I've I've done it. It's been worth it.
yeah.
Um,
You always have more. You always strive for more. But like it was like a done it feeling of like my youth and my goals was like, yeah, that's cool.
I think for me, and you know, correct me if I'm wrong, if there's things that you'd prefer to like highlight on, but it could be broken down into three things. One of the things I saw was you had a pretty good result at Ghent Wevelgem. And
Yeah,
then the other one was World Championships, and then the other thing was then like the track Europeans.
yeah.
So out of those three, w- what are you most like proud of and happy that you accomplished something? And what for the listeners that don't know, what were you actually what do you actually get there?
I feel like we should go in order. 'Cause-
Okay,
so when you say world, do you know about the track or the road?
Australia, yeah. So the road, I guess.
Really? Yeah. Okay, yeah. So Ghent was the second race we did of the year, which is the Nations Cup. Nations Cups, there's about 7 in the year this year, possibly 8, I think. And it's where European countries, maybe even some world countries came, but obviously it's quite a far way to travel for them. Yeah, we had Australia come one time; they were over, but we all compete. There's a national standing, so like by the end of the year, there's a podium for all the countries. So you'll like look at all nations cups, all major events, whoever wins out all of that. So it's quite cool. Like it's like a national series, but a world series in a way. So yeah, again, I think I got fifth there. That was pretty cool because the race before that was hilly, and we had two of my teammates crash really early on, so it was quite a lot of work to do. So by the end, I was like, no, last hill I let them go. I was like, you guys can just finish off now. And then yeah, it was flat in Ghent. Classic Belgian road slabs, just nowhere's like actually tarmacked around there. It's just bumpy. But yeah, so that was really cool. It came down to a bunch sprint. There was like no wind, which was really weird for Ghent. And so it was very blocky, hard to move up, hard to do anything. Few narrow roads, which caused quite a lot of crashes. And it was gnarly. Like, you're getting thrown into that. It was insane. Um, but it was cool. It was really cool just to see like where I was at on the flat and realize that, I think I came like, I don't even know, like 50th, 60th in this hilly race before. And so it was pretty cool to be like, all right, I can do quite well. I'm not that far behind. It's just, yeah, that was quite a relief to just get a decent result that year. A bigger one I'd say in Nations Cup wise was Omloop, Van Borsel. And that was a 3-stage one, which was really cool to do a stage race, European. And it started with a time trial, which was perfect, and it was pan flat, and it was one where Zoe won and I came second. But again, it was on the same standards as the last one, and it was all flat the whole weekend, pretty much all flat, and it was 2 stages of road racing and the one time trial, and that was really cool. Like I say, doing the stage racing, doing a time trial for like that I hadn't done in Europe for like 3 years or so. Yeah, that was really nice to do again, and it was like I say a good result. I got like the youth jersey, which is like the first year jersey, as you'd like to say, and second overall. So that was really cool. And then yeah, into like the later half of the year was when it was like major events, and that's where it was like you felt like you were dreaming, pinch me moments, Yeah, track Euros was first, and that was huge. Yeah, that was probably my biggest one of the year. Probably was Euros, I'd say. I think you probably agree on that as well. Result wise.
Yeah, I mean, wearing a jersey with the European stripes and like being stood on the podium, right? It must be a surreal feeling.
Yeah, it was weird. It was really weird because we'd been training me for the IP, and I came second, and it was really cool because we were both first years, so it was quite a competition, and we get on so well. But it was just really cool to be like, all right, to see where you're at in the European standings. And I was like, all right, I came here to win a Euros jersey, and that bit is fun. I'll do it next year. I'll train harder or whatever. And the points race was sort of like a learning thing for me of just try like a European bunch race. I'd never done it before. I was like, give it a go. And so yeah, when I came out with the Euros jersey, it was not only that cool feeling, but also because I was so surprised by it. I just didn't expect to win it. Like that wasn't what I went to do, and that probably made it a bit nicer because it was just that surprise of like, wow, okay, yeah, that's cool. Um,
Were you realizing that like mid race, like because obviously for people who don't know, I mean, I don't know that much about track cycling, but the points race is obviously like lots of laps with points awarded every so often, and then it's like a leaderboard, and then whoever has the most points of crossing the line first, the most, or that kind of thing. And so
yeah,
as you're racing it, you're sort of realizing that you're obviously I don't know how you're like tracking who else has got how many points and whether there's like a big board on the side of the track, but you're almost realizing it during the race,
yeah,
are you? Yeah, yeah. What was that
yeah,
like?
yeah.
Like, because
So I've
again, you aren't
always
expecting it. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I've always like been quite good at a points race. I think that like go recover. I've just always been quite good at. But I've also been quite good at always like sort of processing things in a race. So I could like kind of look at the board, work out where I was. You know, when I got to the late half of the race, I was sort of like, right, if that girl gets that many points and wins that sprint, you got to think. I like that race because you're constantly thinking. It's not just like a bunch sprint at the end, like a scratch or there's 80 laps. You've got sprints every 10 laps. The last one's double points. It can all change so quick. But yeah, I knew I was going to take a lap, or try. And me and my coach both said, right, just let them sprint when they set up, go. Because we knew they were going to set up, they have in every race that weekend. And we'd sprint, and I'm like, okay, they're not swinging up. They're not swinging up. And it just stayed on for a good 2 laps. I was like, do I just do it? And I stayed patient, and they all swung up. And I went, and it was hard. It was really, really hard. But whilst I was out there, I got a few points from the sprint laps, and I got on, and I see my coach at the bottom of the track, she's like, "Go again," and I'm there like, "No," I'm blown. But it was really cool, and then I go to do like a fake attack just to see what will happen. I look back and there's a gap, and I thought, "Oh God, do I do it?"
yeah,
My heart rate's already at like too high, and I opened up that gap, and I kept going with it. There was like a Belgian girl who attacked after me, and some really nicely timed attacks that went whilst I was off the front. Actually, I just got on. It was Belgium or France that attacked, and it was such good timing because there's nothing I could do besides let them go. And it got to the last 20 laps, and it was a matter of just close every attack that goes, and you're going to win. Because I knew that second place, even if they won every sprint, they weren't going to beat me. If they took a lap, there was a close chance of them beating me. And so it's just a matter of closing everything. And I think people started to look at me to close everything.
yeah,
It was hard.
yeah, yeah.
Um, and my parents flew out, which was really helpful because on the side of the track, I was shouting to them, like, that Belgian girl, can she beat me? And, it's quite easy, it gets to a point where there's so much to think about. I needed that, like, reassurance, right? You can just control it and you'll be all right.
Hmm.
Yeah, it was like a few laps to go, and I was like, literally just repeat in my head, don't crash, don't crash, don't
Yeah,
crash.
yeah.
That's the one thing that could take me out of this race.
So if even if you're leading and you
Mm.
crash, does that just you just get disqualified or whatever then?
No, so you have like 3 laps to get back in, like 3 of their laps, 3 or 5. Sometimes it can change at different races you go to, and they'll count down, and it's a matter of I could have got up off that bike and thought, I've got a puncher, we've got to change wheel in 3 laps, and 3 laps is about a minute,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
at best, and that's if they're set up. Um, and so yeah, it was just a matter of like, and it got sketchier as the race went on. You're more tired, people were trying to fight for points, and it was just like, that you just knew it was the only thing that was going to wipe me out, and I was like, trying to kind of keep up, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, crossing that finish line like instantly, like that's when it sunk in. Before that, I didn't really process where I was at, how big the race was, and yeah, when I finished, it was just like that sigh of relief and like celebrating with my family. And I went around the other side of the track, and someone I knew gave me a flag, and it was just doing all that stuff that you see on TV and you think that would be cool to do one day. And it was definitely like a pinch me moment of like, yeah, this is this is it.
Yeah. 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 Did they play like the
So,
national anthem when you're on the podium?
yeah,
Yeah.
they played it,
So
and
how is
it
that
was yeah.
compared to like watching when you see like the Olympics on TV or you see like any kind of big sporting event? How does it compare? Like, was it what you thought it was going to be? Because obviously I've never been in that position. I want to know what it's like.
Yeah.
Like, they're like random officials like pointing you and telling you where to go, and then you got to like stand there. And what's it like?
So I got off and I got to the bottom of the ramp, and I instantly they were like anti-dope, and I was like, really? Like, so yeah, so we had like underneath the track, you had to like come down in the middle of the track, like there was like it like kind of sunken below, and then there was like corridors underneath the track of where we were like cooling down and stuff. So I went there, and anti-dope follows you and whatever. Um, I went to podium, and it is really weird. You have like the officials like telling you where to go and when to do things, and they're like, right, do this then, and you have to do things in a certain order. It's a lot more like professional, and there were so many photographers, and there was one there that I know. He does stuff for SW Pics. You probably heard of him. They're a good UK like photographer, and he was there, which was cool because he then takes some more photos of you individually and whatever. But yeah, no, it was really cool, and like doing the interview after as well. I didn't realize that was part of it. And like the winners signed this like big board as well, which was really cool because then you had like you just had that moment of like that's special to get your name on there. You got to be a European champion. Um, and so yeah, but again, I didn't really take it all in at the time because you're just so like in the moment, and like it's really nice that it was recorded because when I look back on it, which was only a couple of weeks ago, I rewatched it all, and it was like, wow, that was really cool. So
Save
yeah,
that sort of stuff for motivation in January, where it's 5 degrees and it's
yeah,
pouring with rain. It's like just get that video back on before you head out.
yeah.
Amazing. And then I guess we turn to then more recently, I suppose, towards the end of the year for you,
Mhm.
which is World Championships, which is absolutely nuts. Just saying that out loud, like just you're just like racing world champs, like yeah, cool. um,
Yeah.
so like what for again, like if you're assuming that the listener like doesn't know anything about cycling, what is it that you're going out there to compete in, and what was it like, and what were the results?
So it's the biggest race of the year. I think even when you're an elite pro, I think it's still the biggest thing of the year. You have your own personal goals, but it is just huge. So every nation, or nearly every nation, will go to a location this year. Australia, which was absolutely a blessing to be able to go to there. That's a bucket list alone, isn't it? So that was really awesome. It was a time trial and a road race. Time trial for our age category was like 16Ks, 10 miles. And it's simply a matter of how fast can you go. It's timed, and that's the time trial. And the road race was 70 or 80Ks. And again, it's just attacking or
Yeah, is this junior level
sprinting at the race. Yeah,
racing against juniors?
yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
And so yeah, it was insane just to go to Australia, I think, and travel as a team, do things as a team, and how professional it all was, and how you get a trait is mind blowing. And we'll go into that, but to summarize it, yeah.
When you're like racing against like the best juniors in the world, like again, I guess it's the same question as before, but is it like more inspiring or is it more like intimidating? Like, where does it sit in your mind?
The event was more intimidating because the top time trialist I had already raced, and that's when I came second with Zoe, and so like I had experience with those girls through the Nations Cups in the year, so that helped me a lot relax in terms of like the road race and who was around me, and we were really lucky in the road race as well. So last year obviously Zoe won the road race, and so like GB all roll up as a group first, so we were like at the front of the race from the get go, and that was quite nice enough to like fight up and you can kind of relax a bit more. But yeah, I think it was just more the pressure of the event, and it was just so big, like how professional it was, the amount of people that were there, like even in the sighting laps that was a few days earlier than that, like there was so many people in the crowds like cheering and saying your name and you're like what. But yeah, it was awesome.
Can't imagine what it was like coming home from that and then going, right, season done. Looking back and seeing all these things, and again, as we discussed, like dreams come true, I suppose.
It's really funny, like going back to the road worlds, that was I don't know how to word it, not the worst race of the year, but mentally the worst race of the year. um it was just a matter of unfortunately we didn't have a massive exposure of riders this year for the women's junior side of things. Um, like I say, the first race we did, one got crashed and done her collarbone, so she was out for most of the year besides one race. One girl who crashed nearly every week. She just had the worst luck of the year. You always have that season, and she had that season. Um, and it was a blessing to be able to do everything, but also not, because I'm so glad I experienced it all. But like I said, when I was younger, you can't peak for 20 odd races in the year or however many you're doing. And it got to Road Worlds, and I just done a massive block into Euros. And then I tried to keep holding on to that form when it came to Track Worlds. And then I hold on to that form to World, and it just wasn't given. And we'd obviously done the Nations Cups before that. And there was a Nations Cup literally like a week or two before Road Worlds. And you just like, I got to Worlds and I was just so done in. Like, I was only like 15 seconds off podium, but like the girls that were above me, fair play on the day, were stronger. But previously I had beat or done better than. And so it's just a frustrating thing of like, I really wanted to go on podium. I wanted to go and do what I was good at, especially in the time trial, and help my teammates in the road race. But I was just so burnt out, and I ended up being sick between the time trial and the road race. So I didn't think I was going to actually do the road race in the end, but I somehow got to the start line. But yeah, it just made it hard in terms of like racing, but it was still like the biggest experience yet, like 100%. It was just hard result wise to like push through, but off season was lovely.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, all things considered, given the fact that you, as you've just described, you were not feeling the best and burnt out,
Yeah,
you're still like the first year junior in the time trial. So, I mean, it's
yeah, that
still
was really,
pretty confidence inspiring that like maybe if you do wherever Worlds is next year, if it's close to home, then it'll be now it's just you against the same people as last year, and then people
yeah.
1 year younger than you. So you got a real chance, I suppose. So,
Yeah, next year's gonna be cool. It's in Glasgow, so as close we're
uh,
gonna get to home as we will. So yeah, what we can class as a home race. So yeah, I really want to go and I really want to do well, and
it's one of those times
do
that
what I wanted to do today.
we claim it as like United Kingdom rather than
Yeah, yeah,
England
yeah.
Scotland
Rather than
divide.
England,
Yeah, it's like Andy Murray when he wins the tennis or loses the tennis. It's like it's United Kingdom now, not Scotland.
yeah, yeah. It's all
Um,
combined. Same thing, same island.
yeah. And so I guess that feels like a full picture of like the journey you've been on. And one of the interesting things that you pointed out at the beginning was how you were like super shy and needing the reassurance loads when you were like really young, and then now you're so sure of yourself, confident, you got these results and stuff. Like, what do you think that difference is? And is there anything that happened like outside of the cycling world that like has made that difference in you now, or do you think it's the cycling that's really kind of propelled that change?
Hmm.
Because obviously it's quite distinct, and it's something I kind of draw parallels with because I was quite shy when I was like younger, and then kind of there was a point in my life and you kind of become more confident, and not everyone has that, right? A lot of people don't have that
Hmm.
change, and people kind of get even worse maybe. So, like, what if you could try and think about where that's come from? Could you?
Yeah, yeah. It definitely would be cycling. Like I think you adapt as a person. But if everyone adapts and gets older and matures, but if I didn't have cycling, I would have just matured into a shy person. Whereas I had that exposure to people, so I started doing well, and then you start getting interviews, and I mean that's instantly you've just finished racing, someone's in your face with a camera. You have to be able to speak on the spot and speak to new people, and the whole sport, it's all about communication and speaking to new people, and every race has new people, you meet new coaches, and I think it just over time it took a couple of years, but then I became that more confident person. And as I've got older and matured, you then just learn that you can no one's scary. You can speak to people, and I think it definitely was cycling that brought that exposure to me and allowed me to come out my shell and be the person I am now. So
I suppose it's like because you get put in like really awkward, uncomfortable environments over and over and over again, and eventually you just deal with it. Like eventually your
yeah,
body is like, you know what, I'm not gonna be shy anymore because you're forcing me to do things that I'm uncomfortable in, and I'm gonna
yeah,
try and become more comfortable. And I mean, obviously, like even doing things like this, right? Like doing a podcast, like speaking, having a
yeah,
conversation about all of this stuff for an hour and a half, maybe you wouldn't have been able to do 2 years ago or 3 years ago, or whatever. So
mm.
it speaks volumes, I think. I mean, I wouldn't have been able to do this 2 or 3 years ago. So I think it's exactly the same. What?
No, yeah,
Yeah.
cycling definitely guide your shell more, and I think in multiple aspects as well. Like we said earlier about, people might be getting insecure about weight, size, whatever. That disappears shortly as well because you basically live with each other, and you have moments where we're getting changed at the back of a van at a race. You kind of get more used to that, and I think cycling in general and sport in general, it will apply to other sports as well. I think it just allows you to be you, be more comfortable within yourself as well, and like feel a lot more supported. So.
I suppose natural question, given the things you've been able to achieve this year and the position that you're at as an athlete, where do you see your I know this is again a big question, but where do you see your career going? Like, what are your ambitions? What would you be looking to try and achieve in the next few years and over your career into, I suppose, being a professional? I mean, actually, before that question, where are you at now with like being on the bubble of like competing at this level, but obviously like the lack of funding, maybe even specifically for women's sport as well. Like, where are you at with that sort of professional journey?
I think it's at the point now where it's like, going into my second year junior, you're looking for that. You're a lot more focused. So, like I say, this year I did everything, and there was no tapering. Like we tapered for events, but there was no rest in between. And like I say, you can't do like 20 races and peak for all of it. Whereas this year, it's a lot more thinking about, right, what are my strengths? What am I good at? Let's look at what races I want to achieve and do well at. And it works quite well for me in the early start part of the season. I've got some flat races I want to achieve well at. So I'll go into them, recover a bit, hopefully hit into like worlds if I get the opportunity to go, and the major event side of things. So I think it's like allowing myself to, actually better prepare for that sort of thing. But yeah, I think right now it's just finding that one big result to hopefully push me into, a good team. Or I think it's really hard because it's working out where our sport's developing right now. You have like British cycling and the track pathway, and then you have like development, world tour, continental teams. I think the last few years, like that's become more of a merge than two separate things. I think you'll see on track and track world that's just been there was so many successful athletes that you only ever see on the road that just come back to track when it's big races and stuff. And I think if I had to have that perfect dream pathway, that would be it. And that's to hopefully find a team, ride for them, develop with them, with many different roles as well. The leader, being domestic, like there's so many opportunities within it. So I think that would definitely be my pathway, and coming back to track to do things like Worlds, Euros, Olympics would be amazing. So I think it's just the classic of what everyone wants to achieve. But yeah, I think next year's like I just really want to get like one good result, get my name out there a bit more, and hopefully, yeah, get on a good team and see where. I think it's just seeing where things go because you just don't know where the sport's going to go. It changes so quickly. Like a few years ago, you wouldn't have thought there would even be a women's road team sometimes, that is accessible for juniors. And so, yeah, I think it's just sort of seeing where the sport develops, what results I get next year, what comes my way, and, going from there.
So certainly sounds like a good plan. And I suppose there is that struggle again for like a non-cyclist, like because you got this whole track world, which in my view anyway, in previous years and from speaking with people, not naming names, but a common friend we share, speaking about how like British cycling focus so much on track, and it's like trying to bring in the balance of road support as well,
Mm.
because because track is really only, from my outside perception, probably Commonwealth Games, Olympics, World Champs. There's obviously smaller events, but in terms of where the eyes are, and because where the eyes
Mm.
are is where the sponsorship and where the money is more on obviously the road scene. And so
Mm.
it's sort of like striking that balance between sustaining yourself, right? Because you want to be a professional cyclist. So it's
Mm.
like you got to have an income, you got to be bringing in money on a team outfit, but also being able to achieve both. And I think going the road angle obviously is the way to go. And then, like you say, as I've seen people like, I don't know, Mark Cavendish like
Mm.
going onto the track all of a sudden. It's like, oh yeah, okay, it is possible to do
Yeah,
both.
yeah. I think you got to do what you enjoy, and but then you've also got to think about, right, I've got to live. You know, we do cycling as a job, so BC's been amazing. Like especially as a junior, you get to do a lot more of the road stuff. Like I say, we've done more road than track this year, but it's as you develop up to senior and podium where it's a lot more track based. It's a lot more we're aiming for Euros, worlds, and all that sort of thing, and it's just a lot harder to balance that with like a big team. It's a lot easier just to sort of go to a team and come back to track for the big event, or go to a lower down team, continental, or just a development team, and then focus more on track. I mean, that's the easier route when you want to do BC alone. But yeah, like I said, I think a lot of it's like coming down to how next year goes. What results you get, and I'm very grateful at the minute. Hopefully, some few sponsors coming soon, which will help massively go into the new year. So yeah, it's heading in the right direction anyway, especially in terms of women's sport. So
Exciting. That's the question I was going to ask actually. Is given the position you're in and the direction you're going, what do you think you can? Well, two questions really. What do you think you can do to try and help? I mean, obviously, other than just exposing it, I suppose there's not much. But the what do you see from your perspective as being like the main issues, not just with British cycling? I mean, like just with British. Okay, British cycling, not the organisation, right? Like just cycling in Britain, women's and also I suppose men's in terms of the domestic scene. What do you think the main issues are, and
mm-hmm.
like how, if you were in charge, how would you try and like improve things for men and women?
I feel like it's like the government, isn't it? Like everyone's never happy with it, but it's always hard to like dictate what the right option is to do. Um, I think it's hard. I think we've always had the upper hand on every country and every team there is. We've always been quite a strong, dominating country. But I think recently, especially teams like Italy and just Germany, many strong teams are like starting to catch up, and it's becoming a lot more level, which isn't bad because I think it also helps us to push and think, oh, what can we do to help us. Um, and it's hard. I think Brexit's also had a big impact in that. It's harder to pro teams and stuff. It was easy before, whereas now you've got to get visas, and you did anyways. But in terms of Brexit, it has made it a lot harder, and like the costs and everything. So you can understand, and I think we've obviously recently lost a couple of sponsors, and we've now gained Shell, which is really helpful, obviously, in terms of actual British cycling, not just cycling in Britain.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, as I say, I think it's really hard to dictate yourself, like what you do. Because like I say, everyone's got those things. It's like, oh, I wish that was better, and I wish we could do that. But then if it was in my hands, I'd be like, oh, I don't know what to do. But yeah, I think we are definitely going the right direction. The whole world of cycling. As I've mentioned a few times, like we hadn't had teams before really. There was many teams that was like, now we're not starting a women's team, and now are heavily involved in women's cycling, or try and promote it more than men sometimes. I think that's really positive. I don't think there should be a difference. There is no difference. And so yeah, I think we're definitely going the right direction, and it's just a slow process. I think, like anything, I think it will just take a few years. There's still a few teams that still point blank will say, I want no involvement in women's sport, but I think eventually, like anything, they'll have to budge, and something has to give at some point. When everyone's adapting, you've got to sort of adapt with the times, I think.
I mean, yeah, you summarised it quite well there, and I think the way you picked up on the fact that will. It's very easy to critique things. It's a completely different story actually trying to do things yourself. I think most of us are, what would you say, like backseat drivers and like just couch warriors.
Yeah.
All those phrases of just, yeah. There's obviously problems, but rather than just complaining about it, I suppose the best way to do it is to just be active and out there and doing things like, I don't know if you've seen
Mm.
Jake Vita, but like creating new teams like the Lacquer Pedal Mafia and pioneering new things, making things exciting. And I kind of also speaks to the optics of it as well, of like if you can make it look good for younger riders or for just for people who don't cycle to get into cycling, then obviously you're going to improve the number of
Mm.
cyclists and the whole scene. And there's kind of two angles to a women's cycling side. Like one side is like maybe generally like there just is naturally going to be more men than women, but equally the fact that
Mm.
for women there aren't as many role models mean that women that might have wanted to get into it may be like discouraged, or maybe it's not possible. Like you say, there aren't the teams available. So I think like we got to do a better job of getting it up and running first and doing the hard work
Mm.
to then have wide role models, wide support. Because I appreciate as well, it's quite a hard sport to get into. It's not as bad as something like rowing, but it's equally like you still need to buy the equipment, join the club, feel like there's people your age that look like you that have the same
Mhm.
same kind of personality to get into it. As I suppose you would have been quite fortunate with like a club like Paul Wheelers, who I was never a part
Mhm.
of, but it's like one of the biggest teams in Bournemouth area, and you have a lot of youth there, and that's the kind of environment that you want to sort of inspire people and get them into, isn't it? So,
Mm. I
um,
feel that's why I fell quite nicely into it. They were very much my age and involved in the development of youth sport, which was very important, and they still do. Um, as you asked earlier as well, about like what we can do as people. It's just creating those bigger role models. I think the more we have and more people that are into sport and doing well in sport, and that person that you can look up to and be like, oh, I want to do that, I want to achieve that. I think that's the only way sports going to develop. And someone like me right now, I can't change the whole of Britain in terms of cycling, but you can make a small impact, and 100 people's small impact will create another 100 people with impact. And yeah, I think it's just inspiring, doing the right things, and like hopefully people want to achieve the same thing that you did and feel like it's okay to get into sport, especially. I think there's been that stigma of men's sport sometimes, and proven that previously, whereas that is starting to change now. I think people need to be able to see that and that be exposed a bit more.
less talking, more doing, basically.
Yeah.
Um, and I guess for me or for another listener who isn't at the level that you are, it's still in like trying to promote things, trying to support things, you know, whether it's actually taking the time, if you've only watched like guys Tour de France and male cycling, stick on the women's cycling and get invested and learn the riders, and like become invested in both, because I think the racing isn't that different in terms of how entertaining it is to watch. Like, yeah, they might be going like slightly slow or whatever, but like it's marginal, and I think that's the biggest thing really, is to support that with what we can do as well. So um, yeah, I look forward to seeing you on the TV in the next couple of years as you're kind of getting into that top level, hopefully. Um, Speaking of like that kind of whole realm of the kind of pro realm, what's one thing that you kind of aspire to now that's like your dream? Like, is it like winning Paris-Roubaix or something like that, or is it like in the work that you can do off the bike as well, like inspiring? Like, what would you be happy with achieving?
I think there's many options depending on like where my career ends up falling. Like, if I stay on track, then it's a matter of like the next couple years, worlds, next few years. I say few, not 3 or 4, maybe a bit more than that, but like the Olympics and stuff. Um, and as I say, I've got a good shot next year, hopefully, as a junior, accomplishing a podium at Worlds. And I think short term, next few years would be absolutely a privilege to win a Worlds jersey, and that would be like the next level up. And then going hopefully world tour in the future and winning like a stage race or winning a classic, that would be pretty big for me. I think at the minute I'd definitely say I'm a classics rider, so I can do something cool with that. That'd be nice.
I'm calling it now, like 2026 or 2027 Paris-Roubaix Top step.
That'd be sick.
Listen to this back. If this audio will be played over the top if you ever win that, I swear.
You'd be scrolling back years and years. Just
Absolutely. Yeah. Hopefully, I'm still going with this podcast as well, and hopefully, you are still racing at that level.
Yeah, it's really cool.
But yeah, I think that probably wraps things up. And unless there's anything else that like you'd like to share impart your wisdom on, or any inspiring words for maybe people who actually, I'll leave it with this one. If someone is listening to this and they don't cycle, what sales pitch would you say to them to get into the sport? Because it's a sport that we both love.
Question.
Yeah.
Oh God. Cyclist. So they're not into cycling. You're trying to like promote getting
So
into
it's
cycling.
almost like imagine like one of your friends from school that you would have known or you're still good friends with that doesn't cycle, like because it's something that we both love, and it's obviously like, yeah, of course there's the racing element, but there's also like just fantastic days out in the summer, cafe stops, all the rest of it. Like how do you convince someone? Because it's something that I want to try and do. So speaking from someone who's been quite successful at it, what would you say?
I think it's like literally what we've discussed and what you've just said there. There's a social aspect of it, which isn't always competitive cycling. To be a cyclist, you haven't gone to the Euros in the world and done those massive things. You can simply just be riding a bike around your local area, and I think any level is a good level. And I think like we've done in this interview, I've talked about how I've progressed as a person, not only on the bike and physically and stronger, but also mentally stronger, and how I've adapted as a person and become more confident. And I think someone who could be quite shy or not the most confident person, how much it can change you just doing a sport and being surrounded by people, and having that exposure. So yeah, I think literally what we spoke about and the experience of people having that role model and seeing what it can do to people, I think that's the main way we're going to promote.
Absolutely. Well, if you're listening or watching right now, I hope you go out and buy a bike. And
what a question!
Yeah, I know. It's just it's something that I'm really endeavouring to do, because it's something we'll both appreciate. I mean, obviously you on more on the competitive, like top level racing side. I've never got past Cat 3, but just in terms of what an amazing sport, and what a shame it is that as we touched on at the beginning, that the optics of it, of just playing football or whatever else, or netball or rugby at school, actually cycling ought to be a bit more focused on.
Nothing wrong with a bit of lycra.
Yeah, absolutely. And on that note, that's probably the end of the podcast. So yeah, that's a Top Gear ending. That is, what a bombshell to finish on. But thanks so much for your time. Really appreciate it. I wish you all the best with everything you're doing, and thanks for coming onto the podcast.
Of course, thank you.
Cheers.